Hey guys, welcome back to another video. And in today's video, we are finally doing the long-awaited what was supposed to happen in Fortnite Chapter 2. Now this video is going to be wild. This is going to involve Disney. This is going to involve lots of things. This is going to involve COVID-19 and some nostalgia too. And seasons that weren't even supposed to exist initially. Now, if you like these videos, please subscribe to the channel. And maybe I'll even look into Chapter 1 next video. Also, if you guys like this video, make sure to drop a like. It will help me get this video out to more people.
Hey, I'm almost there. Flying, but I don't care. You and I, we don't die. We survive. You're gonna be texting and crying, but it won't last. Leaving all the pain in the past. Toxicity with so much passion. All the best things, they never last, yeah.
Now, with all that aside, let's actually get into the meat and potatoes of this video. So where do we even start with Chapter 2? Well, Chapter 2, Season 1 at least, went through development hell. This was due to multiple reasons. Disney wanted a Fortnite Marvel season. Current working conditions at Epic Games during Chapter 1 were not good. Updates were being rushed out and it wasn't healthy. There was even a lawsuit over it, I believe. And what we got was the longest season in Fortnite history. And a lot of people glazed this season, which I can see why because some of the events, but if you actually looked at some of the content we barely got anything. A lot of the people glazing this season don't remember how long and boring this first season was because it was just so long. But initially, it wasn't supposed to be like that. It was supposed to be like how Fortnite Chapter 1 was, where it would have been like 2 months, 2 to 3 months long, and wouldn't be that long of a season. And as for storyline stuff, probably the same stuff with Ego and Alter. Also, Alter and Ego, aka Ghost and Shadow, their names were randomly changed in Chapter 2 Season 2. This was probably because it was a little retcon Epic wanted to make. Since Season 2 had a lot of development time, a lot was changed with Season 2, including the Alter and Ego retcon. Not only that, Season 2 was originally going to be a little bit different. In fact, we probably wouldn't even gotten the agency, but we'll get to that. One other thing I want to mention from Season 1, the skin chick in the Chapter 2 Season 1 Battle Pass. She's the daughter of the owner of Frenzy Farms. I know this because an Epic dev came out and said this somewhere. I forget where, but yeah, that's an interesting fact. That's all I gotta say about Season 1. If Season 1 had only been 2 to 3 months, Chapter 2 Season 2 would have been a little bit different. In fact, we wouldn't have gotten many of the iconic locations that you saw in that season. Possibly. Now for a crazy reveal. Remember these prefabs that were randomly released back in I think Chapter 2? These were meant for Chapter 2 Season 2. And there's a lot of evidence here. Epic loves remaking buildings all the time. The theater would have returned. And all this stuff was supposed to be what Season 2 was supposed to be. Likely we still would have gotten Midas. Also, I want to point this out. In Brick Life, Midas owns a bank. And I don't know if that's possibly evidence of these actually being from Chapter 2 Season 2. I did get some insider info, which is why I'm explaining this to you guys. You don't have to believe me on anything, but I highly believe this insider info about these being from Chapter 2 Season 2 and how these were supposed to be the POI, part of a POI possibly. And if you look at these prefabs, I mean, it really starts to resemble what could have been possibly. But they did end up adding them to creative eventually because there probably would have been a ton of unused assets which hardworking developers put their time into. But fun fact, a lot of this did end up getting used in the agency and other POIs in Season 2. Also, they might have even reused the original heist concept in Lawless years later, possibly. So yeah, Chapter 2 Season 2 wasn't originally going to be a spy season, but more of a heist season, if that makes sense. Which it still kind of is a heist season if you think about it, but it's more of a spy because there's more spy gear and that kind of stuff going on with this season. We likely still would have gotten the device event, but it would have been a little bit different and it would have probably led into something different. I say this because both the Flood season, aka Season 3, and the Marvel season weren't initially meant to happen. Remember how I said Disney wanted a Marvel season? Well, this caused issues, like I said, in Season 1, where the Season 1 got delayed. So, in the Flood season, that was created because they didn't have anything in between Chapter 2 Season 2 and Chapter 2 Season 4. So the Flood season was rushed. It's a miracle that either of these seasons were still decent, if not good. These seasons were good. I ain't gonna lie. I don't have a problem with them. But later when I go to show you more evidence why they're rushed, you'll see what I mean. But as for storyline stuff, similar things would have happened. The device event still would have happened, probably a little bit different. Midas this time around probably would have owned a bank rather than an agency. And that's about it. He activates the device and it causes issues leading to the IO to release the 0 point. And also this is when Agent Jones comes into play because he was probably still planned for the season. I have no idea. But this is the most shocking part. Season 5 was meant to be Season 3. Evidence of this is pretty obvious. I mean, Season 2 introduced Agent Jones. And then it would have followed up with Agent Jones rather than jumping from a flood to Marvel heroes fighting off Galactus. It was meant to be another way around. Somehow the 0 point would have been pulled from this. And Season 5 would have been a little bit different. It would have been more like Season X, where we would see old stuff return. Early concept art right here shows like Neo-tilted buildings returning, a bunch of other stuff returning. You can even see Jules here, who was initially meant for this season. And some of this we did end up getting, like we got Salty Towers, we got the Pizza Pit returning, all that cool stuff. And after this, I have no clue, because a little fun fact about Epic, they used to plan ahead. They don't do it anymore, or at least at this point. They only really planned ahead 3 or 4 seasons. That's at least what I've been told. I don't know how far ahead Donald Mustard was planning with this, but there are 4 seasons cut from Chapter 2, possibly. There are the 2 in the beginning that were meant to be the seasons that we would have gotten before we got Season 3 and the Season 4 we got. Those I have no idea about. I have no idea what they were supposed to be. The other 2, I have a general idea of what they were going to be with evidence, but we'll get to those. Those are more towards the end of the chapter. Season 3, I don't really have much to say why it was rushed. It really didn't seem like it. Maybe those assets that they used were for a future season possibly, but I know for sure that this season wasn't meant to happen. Season 4 is pretty obvious. First of all, at the start of the season, we only had Doom's domain, and it was just Butter Barn pieces on Doom's house. And I say this, I know Butter Barn is from Season 5, but likely they already had all these assets made, so they were just reusing assets from a future season. You can also see this when we did get Stark Industries later in the season. A lot of the props from Stark Industries ended up being used in IO bases, like Corny Complex. Not only that, the Helicarrier Spawn Island, all those assets ended up being used for the IO bases in Chapter 2. If I am correct with Chapter 2 Season 5 being Chapter 2 Season 3 originally, likely they had all these assets already made. They were just reusing them in the Marvel season later, which is interesting. It is very, very interesting. And the Marvel season also has evidence of being rushed. Instead of 3D modeling like actual weapons for the Marvel heroes, they did emblems instead, which is a little bit weird because after Chapter 2, they never used this concept ever again. Likely because they had more time to develop the weapons and actually give them weapon icons and models within the files. But that's all the evidence I can really give for that season being rushed. It still was a really good season with a really good event with the Galactus event. So at least it isn't Chapter 4 levels of rushed, but it was still decent. It was still a good season. And regardless of some assets being reused or not, really doesn't matter. Still was a fun season. But that's all I can say about those seasons and what evidence I could provide, because this is coming off insider info. Also, want to mention this, because I know I would be mentioning COVID in this video. The pandemic delayed Season 2. Also, Season 2 was initially only meant to be 2 months, but due to COVID-19, a lot of stuff got shut down, including Epic Games, so a lot of them had to work remotely. So there was a lot of factors bringing down, which is why Season 3 happened the way it did. It wasn't meant to happen like that, and why Season 4 was a little bit rushed. Just to recap here, it was COVID and Disney that caused all this to happen. You know what's funny about the Disney thing? This wouldn't be the last time that Epic Games would fold under Disney. Go watch my Chapter 5 video if you want to know more about that. Anyways, so a lot was changed. So let's go back to sort of what looks like our timeline for a second here, and say that Season 3 and 4 both happened. Like, we got the flood season and season 4. What else changes in the future? You'd be surprised. You'd actually be surprised. Season 5 probably would have still happened normally, with Agent Jones hopping around, grabbing different collabs, something we still see to this day, because we're still getting collabs in Fortnite, like, weekly. All that happens. Season 6 happens as normal. You know, the only thing really ruining that season is the primal shotgun. Fucking hate that gun. Hate that gun with my life. But everything changes once we get to chapter 2, season 7. One of my all-time favorite seasons of all time. But what if I told you a certain season from chapter 3 was meant to happen on chapter 2? This, in fact, I'm talking about Vibin. Now, what ended up happening in Vibin chapter 3 is completely different than what was supposed to happen in Vibin chapter 2. However, we did end up seeing some of the stuff that was meant for chapter 2 Vibin in chapter 2 season 7, the actual chapter 2 season 7. The Cosmic Summer event, the reason why it was so stacked is because a lot of that stuff was meant for a completely original season. So what would have happened? Likely, the island, people of the island, the loopers, would have heard about approaching aliens. So to I guess welcome them, they would create a bunch of stuff on the beach, and that's where Believer Beach comes from. And they would have thrown a big party, and then I guess the mothership would have slowly arrived to the island. I don't have much info on this, but a lot of the stuff that was supposed to be used in that season probably ended up getting used in the chapter 3 Vibin. Now, no, there wouldn't have been a rave cave. No, there wouldn't have been a reality tree. That was all Fortnite chapter 3 original stuff. I don't know if the Peace Syndicate was supposed to be involved, though I believe Sunny and Evie were originally meant to be the same character, possibly. Another thing I could possibly point out is No Sweat Insurance involvement, and No Sweat Insurance was also on Fortnite chapter 3 and had some lore during, I believe, that season. Also, chapter 2 season 7, the one we got, I believe did have some No Sweat Insurance stuff. So likely during Vibin we would have explored more so than No Sweat Insurance, while the looming threat of the mothership slowly approaches the map. The Imagined Order probably would have still been involved. Agent Jones, I think, was kidnapped by this point, possibly. And all the same stuff with those voice lines. I believe there was voice lines in chapter 2 season 7 where Sloane was basically looking into the aliens and stuff, and Sunny and her weird connection to the alien. And then this would have led into chapter 2 season 7. Probably not as good as the one we actually got, but it's probably still would have been a solid season. Probably involving more the mothership, more map corruption, and then the same stuff would have happened possibly with the Cube Queen falling out of the mothership and all the cubes falling out of the mothership, and then we would have went to Cubed. Cubed might have not been the final season here, and by this point in this version of the timeline, Cubed would have been chapter 2 season 9. Editor arc here. This video was completely recorded and completely edited by the time of me recording this, but then I read a certain part of this document that I was about to announce here. Basically, chapter 2 season 8 was originally going to have a vampire faction. The initial idea for The Last Reality was a mix of an elite faction throughout the multiverse who wanted to make the perfect world, but then the vampires would overthrow the Cube Queen, who was still at the top, and then a Halloween style season would have happened in chapter 2 season 8. And they figured out that shit was fucking stupid, so they pivoted to an entirely cube based season. Meaning, chapter 2 season 8 was going to be a Halloween season, and the whole thing with the Cube Queen would have still happened, but then instead we would have had to fight vampires and stuff, which then would have been the perfect transition into chapter 2 season 9. But then there would have been an X. I don't know. This is something I want to point out. I'm going to continue playing the video as I normally did with all the theories and stuff. I also had this confirmed with the insider. Apparently they were not supposed to tell anyone this. This wasn't even supposed to get out, apparently, that The Last Reality was supposed to be like this originally. But, yeah, this is me finding information pretty late on. I should have really read through all of the document properly. Again, I was going off memory here, and I went to go grab evidence. I do apologize, but I will be linking the document in the comments below. Yeah, let's just continue on with what past Arkselta was saying here. It could have either ended, or we could have went into Chapter 2 Season X. Now, this one is theoretical. The Insider couldn't confirm this or not. But in the document that revealed everything about Chapter 5, which I talked about in my last video, it also had other info, including about Chapter 2, 3, and a lot of insider info, including Cato Thorne. Yes, the villain from Chapter 4 that was meant for Chapter 3 was concepted in Chapter 2. And if you think about it, Chapter 2 Season X being a time-themed season would make a lot of sense, as it would also line up with Chapter 1 Season X. And Cato Thorne was originally supposed to involve more with space, and we know the Cube Queen summoned a portal into space with the last reality. So likely, Chapter 2 Season X was gonna be last resort, and probably the Cube Queen would have opened the portal in the sky to bring Cato Thorne to the map. And since Chapter 1 also ended with a time-themed season, it also makes sense for Chapter 2 to end with a time-themed season. Or it could have been the other way around, where this season was going to happen before Cubed, or even before the events of Vibin invasion and Cubed. But I can't say for sure. This is incredibly theoretical. This is a theoretical season that was likely meant to happen. I know there was a CEO, I think it was Mark Ryan, who back in like Chapter 2, when everyone was questioning whether or not the map was going to end early, he said no, it's not going to end till Chapter 2 Season 10. Also, the Fortnite crew, this proves Chapter 2 Season 9, showed it was going to continue in the Chapter 2 Season 9, which didn't happen. Both Chapter 2 Season 9, Chapter 2 Season X were most likely meant to happen. I can prove Vibin. The one I can prove is Vibin, because this is what I was told by the Insider. And the other stuff from what I said earlier. Chapter 2 Season X is incredibly theoretical. And this would be extremely interesting that not only Last Resort was possibly carried over, and probably, honestly, was probably originally a different theme. Like Cato Thorne going around bringing stuff back from the past. Also, I want to mention this. In the files during Chapter 2 Season 8, there were references to the grotto returning, including a loading screen with core and an unidentified building, likely meaning the grotto was supposed to return at some point. So with all of this knowledge being said here, and all this being said, there's not much I can prove that this season existed, so we're gonna go off theories here. Cube Queen summons portal, brings Cato Thorne in, and maybe he was in the Cube Cradle, and maybe that's what the Cube Cradle was for. I don't know. What do you guys think? This video is getting extremely long. This is my most interesting video I've ever uploaded. And if I ever find out info on Chapter 1 or Chapter 6, I will definitely make a video on it. But quite honestly, this could be the last video in the series. I have had it. It's been extremely fun to like explore these alternate reality versions of Fortnite if things happened a little differently. And it's interesting to get insight into like what development was like at Epic Games, because you can tell that Chapter 2 went through development hell. Chapter 1 also went through somewhat of a hell, but that was a different kind of hell. But this one was like, damn. It really goes to show you they really did not have things organized like as early as Chapter 2. I used to think that they didn't really have it together during Chapter 4, but it really goes to show you like during Chapter 2 and like doing things last minute, and it's crazy. But what do you guys think? Tell me in the comments below. Do you believe me? Do you not? It's okay if you don't, because I really can't prove anything I say in these videos. I really can't, other than what is shown. But yeah, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, use code Arkselta in the item shop, and I'll see you guys next time. Yeah, I'm doing one of those cringy outros. Yeah. Anyways, enjoy this cool Thanos clip I got as Doom Thanos. It's really cool. I know it's kind of random to do this thing, but this is just my favorite clip I've ever gotten as a Doom Thanos. Like, this is a very rare event, guys. I'm leaking Avengers Doomsday, guys. Like, it's crazy. Anyways, now, guys, I'll actually see ya. Bye-bye.